Trevor, so nice to meet you.
Pleasure meeting you.
So I'm going to ask you about your book in just a moment, I promise, but I've got to ask you about that show that you did recently that's creating this big stink, your interview with the conservative commentator, Tomi Lahren, the one who has famously compared Black Lives Matter to the KKK.
Yes.
Why was it important to have her on your show?
Here's the thing. The conversation everyone seems to be having is, do we live in bubbles? Do we live in a space where we are unable to understand or acknowledge the fact that there are people out there in the world who have views that are very different to us? But the truth is, I think it's more about the bubbles coming together. And so that is me hearing your view and you hearing my view, which is not something that commonly happens. And hearing them and seeing them collide is something that doesn't seem to happen, especially in a manner that's not hateful, in a manner that's not vitriolic. And I think for myself, the question I ask is, how do you then get a conversation started? How do you get it moving? It seems fruitless to some, but I go, well, the other alternative is to stay in those bubbles that you talk about, so why not have a conversation? Let's see where it goes. What do you wish people would understand about you that are in another bubble? What do you wish people would understand about you on the other side?
I wish that we could disagree with each other without thinking that we are bad people or ill-intentioned folks. That
conversation's led to more name-calling of her and of you. Like, why would you have someone who's been called a white supremacist on your show? Can you bring people together?
Here's the thing, I think nothing happens overnight. You know, I think the effects of any interview or any conversation are not things that are immediately apparent. I also don't think that it's something that will automatically change everybody's minds. What I do acknowledge, though, is there may be people who have never tuned into my show who will tune in to see a person who represents them or their views on my show. And maybe in a moment, they will see or hear a point of view from my side that they've never considered because they've never heard it. And maybe vice versa, to hear that from a conservative person and hear them say that this is my point of view.
That interview's created quite a stir, including a headline saying that Trevor Noah finally fills Jon Stewart's shoes. Is that a compliment or an insult?
You know what, I understand the sentiment behind it, but the truth is, Jon Stewart left an amazing legacy. It's a legacy that we still feel today. You know, he was a person that came in and created, for all intents and purposes, a genre that has been duplicated all over the world.
I want you to admit that there is such a thing as white privilege. That's all I want.
I knew you were going.
But I've come to realize that my purpose is not to fill his shoes. My purpose is to create my own shoes in the shoe factory that he bequeathed to me.
Nice shoes.
Thank you very much.
It's interesting, though, because he really made a name for himself in the mainstream by taking on Fox News, another conservative commentator, as a blowhard. And now you're creating such a stir with this. So is that the role of comedians these days? It seems to have changed.
I don't think it's changed at all. When you think about the role of comedians and stand-ups, essentially what comedians have always been is people who are outsiders looking in and saying, that's ridiculous, how is that normal, how do you hold those views, this is the logical flaw within what you are saying. And when you approach that from a satirical news point of view or from a news parody show, then those views that you are talking about will invariably come from the media. They will come from spaces where people are broadcasting their views. Because I can't go after a random person on Twitter. That's bullying. That's me using a platform that's higher than theirs to engage with them. But if there is someone who's getting millions and millions of views who shares that, you now have an opportunity to engage in a discussion and to try and break down the flaws that you believe to be there in somebody else's argument using comedy. And that's really what comedy is.
You grew up in racist hell of apartheid South Africa, and now you're in America as it's all a different version of racism is getting stirred up. How different is it?
The biggest differences I feel are that I grew up at the end of an era. I grew up during the final years of apartheid, and I think the biggest difference in the US that I feel is because there is an inverse relationship in terms of the majority versus the minority. In South Africa, black people are the majority. And so it is a lot easier for a nation to reckon with its past. It's a lot easier for a nation to dictate how it feels people should talk about these things. We had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, which was important because it was a place and a time when South Africans had to sit down, watch their television screens every single night and hear about how a government had oppressed and murdered and segregated an entire swath of a nation.
You want Americans
And
to have that kind of conversation?
it would be amazing, wouldn't it? I think a Truth and Reconciliation Commission in America would be amazing. There are still people in America who don't think slavery was as bad as people make it out to be. There are people who say, was it that bad? At least they had food. At least they knew they had a job. And you're like, is that a job if there's no payment involved? You know, and to have people question that, to have people question the origins of a country. Whenever I hear people saying the phrase, they go, that's not what America was founded on. I go, but that's not really true. You can say that's not what America aspires to, and that is really beautiful to have aspirations, but you cannot deny that the very foundations of the United States of America are based on segregating and oppressing and racism that has gone through time. And once you acknowledge that, I feel like you have a better chance to aspire to step out of it.
Going to talk about your book. Your mom sounds like entirely fearless.
She really is. She's really fearless or crazy, one of the two. I move between the two ideas, but yeah, she's a really amazing woman who I think I've only grown to fully appreciate, and maybe even not yet, as I've gotten older, and obviously through writing the book about our lives together.
She had relations with your dad, who was white. That was illegal. That was an actual crime. You
Yes.
were an actual crime.
Yes, I was born a crime. I was a product of a crime that my parents had committed. I lived in a country where black and white people were not allowed to get married, nor were they allowed to, as the law said, have carnal intercourse with each other. And these were laws that were punishable by jail time. So that was the world I grew up in.
And she got caught a few times in white neighborhoods and went to jail.
Yeah, my mom, she always laughs about it, and that's why I go, she's amazing, and she's also maybe a little bit insane. But she genuinely jokes about it. She says, oh, honey, I went to jail, but that was part of my world. I accepted it, and I knew I was fighting against something, and so I accepted that this would be a part of my world. And so my mom would get arrested on occasion.
And she'd hide you.
She would, yeah, she would hide me. My grandmother would have to hide me.
Because people would see you and go, you're illegal?
Well, people would understand that I'm out of place. So in order for people to understand the world I grew up in, you have to understand how meticulous apartheid was. Imagine a world where it's not just black or white, it's every single shade that is separated into a different category, and every single category has its own benefits and different liberties that have been removed. And I grew up in a world where, as crazy as it sounds, I was considered superior to my mother and half of my family, and inferior to my father and the other half of my family. And so, because I grew up with my black family in Soweto, because I grew up as a part of that world, if I was seen by the wrong person or if I was spotted by the wrong police, then I could have easily been taken away from my family. Because
the many things that happen today, Lord, come and help us, we pray. Many things are happening this day, yes, Lord, come and help us, we pray. We cry, we cry. Oh Lord, come and help us, we pray. Many things are happening this day, yes, Lord. Come and help us, we pray. Our leaders are fighting, the people so confused. Father, let
Mabaminda na usa with the gozo. Buya limbe kumba na usa with the gozo. How about something is killing me slowly, and I'm feeling so lonely. But this thing I must to talk, oh. All my people, they for bush, oh. And our children are they go for school, oh. But nobody fit to talk, oh. We get to plenty, so many things where we really want to complain to you. See these people where they kill us, not the people where they got for protect me, yeah. Our children, they for prison. Our leaders, they for prison. Now they calling for dialogue. Now who and who go talk, oh. That's why we pray to God. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our people are dying, and our mothers are crying. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our children are dying, and our mothers are crying. But I don't know what's up, oh, at all, oh. This war is bigger, and one man of it put a stop, oh. So make we put them all together, oh. I see plenty people don't die, and the house they went burn. I saw the people they need so far. Everybody running helter skelter, the children they suffer. There is no food and shelter. Our children down the suffer, while the leaders living la vida loca. Yeah. So now we say we go so Cameroon do. We get to plenty, so many things where we really want to complain to you. That see these people where they kill us, not the people where they get for protect we, yeah. Oh, no. Our children they for prison, our leaders they for prison, but they been calling for dialogue. Now who and who go talk, oh. That's why we pray to God. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our people are dying, and our mothers are crying. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our children are dying, and our mothers are crying.
Okay, let's take a minute of silence for our brothers and sisters who have lost their life in the struggle, and our mothers who are living in the bushes, our children suffering in the bushes with no food and no shelter. We pray that may peace return in our land, so that we can live in peace, peace forever. That's what we cry for.
We get to plenty, so many things where we really want to complain to you. See these people where they kill us, not the people where they get for protect we, yeah. Our children they for prison, our leaders they for prison, but they've been calling for dialogue. Now who and who go talk, oh. That's why we pray to God. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our people are dying, and our mothers are crying. Heal our land, heal our land, heal our land. Cause all our children are dying, and our mothers are crying. Say we get to plenty, so many things that we really want to complain to you. Daddy, everywhere. Now we go so.